You're listening to Just My Show, your number one source for pop culture.
So WKRP, it aired 4 seasons, which by today's standards is actually a pretty good run. But the show's so well remembered, it's been in syndication, it almost feels like it aired a lot longer than that. Doesn't it feel that way to you a little bit?
Well, sure. I think that most people thought it lasted longer than 4 seasons. It's been a while. I mean, when you stop and think about it, that's almost like 25 years ago that the show went off the air. I happened to have been on Broadway at the time. I was doing Pirates of Penzance on Broadway at the time that they canceled the show. And I was pretty sure that something weird was going on because I knew the network boys well enough to know that if they had one of their stars, if you will, from one of their series on Broadway, they would be around a lot more. And I kept reporting back to Los Angeles to the cast members. I kept saying, something weird's happening, guys. Nobody's around. And I'm telling you, I think they're going to cancel the series. And, what are you talking about? And indeed they did. So we had no idea that the 4th year was our last. And so there was no really wrap-up kind of program to bring it to a halt. It was just, that was it. It was done, So it was kind of unfortunate. I think had we known that we were in our last year or whatever, I think that some of those episodes would have come to more of a conclusion.
Of course, any successful show, usually is built on great characters, but this one, these characters are so out there. Talk to me about some of these characters and the actors that you worked with on the show.
Well, they were all just great, great people. I mean, it was a family. We still always get together whenever we're all in Los Angeles together and have lunch and everything. We've remained friends. With the passing of Gordon Jump, who was the big guy and the Maytag man, that came as a pretty big surprise to all of us because Gordon, he didn't want to burden anybody with any of his physical ailments or whatever, so he never let anybody really know that he was having any kind of problem. So nobody knew about it. And then for him to just kind of suddenly up and pass away was just a huge surprise. I had done a national tour with Ann Margaret of Best Little Warehouse in Texas, I call it. But I worked with her for about a year and a half in like 55 cities, and when we played Los Angeles, the whole cast came to see the show, and that's the last time that I saw Gordon. And he mentioned to me when they wanted to take some pictures after the show of, the whole cast being together, he said, well, we have to do it quick because I get tired easily. So that was the only time that I really kind of knew something was going on with Gordon. Howard Hessman, Johnny Fever, is just a genius at improv. This guy's been around a long time. Howard is really, really talented guy. Tim Reed was one of the nicest guys you'd want to meet. Probably has more money than all of us put together because after the demise of KRP, he went on and did Sister, Sister, and a couple of other series, and a very successful actor. Lonnie, of course, is always working. Lovely woman, as is Jan Smithers. Jan never really wanted to be an actress in the first place. It wasn't a kind of a driving force as it normally is with someone that wants to go into the acting profession. Jan was discovered. She was a model, and someone took a picture of her on the back of a motorcycle, and it was on the cover of Newsweek or Time or something like that, like typical American teenager. And I guess it was a sensational picture. And she started getting offers for acting roles from that.
Now, of course, Thanksgiving's coming up, so I have to ask you about probably the most famous KRP episode, Turkeys Away episode. And for those who haven't seen it by chance, the big guy tries to plan a big promotional event, drops some turkeys, and it doesn't go too well. No, that was actually replicated last year. A station called Magic 105 in Arkansas paid tribute with a turkey drop, not live turkeys. But this one actually, on KRP, it came from an actual event that really happened. Is this the episode that most people ask you about when they come up to you nowadays?
Absolutely. I mean, that was the most famous episode of all of them. Turkeys Away, which I had always heard came from a radio station promotional thing in Dallas, Texas. I'd always heard it was a thing called Turkey Day in Dallas. Now, be that right or wrong, I don't know. That's what I always heard, that somebody did indeed drop live turkeys from a helicopter, and they bombed the parking lot and created havoc there. But that's one of the most famous lines of the whole entire series, is Gordon's last line, "As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly."
It's a great line. What we talked about the music. At the time you were doing the show, how much of an issue was all that music issue as far as rights? And were bands trying to get on the show? And were there any songs that you remember?
Absolutely.
And were there any songs that you remember
I think,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think it was a very, very big deal. But there were some people sort of hanging around the set a lot, because I think that they wanted to use that show as you know, forwarding their careers a little bit. Bonnie Raitt used to hang around a little bit. So yeah, it was thought of as a very, very hot show for that kind of thing at the time. And indeed, I thought it was pretty nice of Hugh and the gang to pretty much let Tim Reed and Howard Hessman pick some of the music they wanted to play as their characters. So when the Travis character says to some consultant, it was a show called A Consultant, that comes in as supposedly going to, you know, take the show back to Muzak, and he says to this guy, Travis says to this guy, look, he says, you know what, here at this station, the jocks program their own music, whereupon the guy was like, oh, come on, nobody does that anymore. Well, that's what we do here, you know, and that's the way it's going to be. So there was a lot of attention put into what would be the music in those shows. None of that was haphazard.
For more, go to www.justmyshow.com.